Who do you think is supposed to lead in a relationship, man or woman, for the most part?
A man, for sure. A man is stronger, emotionally and physically.
I always find myself leading, taking charge, and that's not attractive.
Welcome, everybody. This is Man versus World, where we are equipping you with the mindsets you need to survive and thrive in this crazy modern world. Today, we are joined by Pete. Pete, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, Mark. Hope you're doing well. Today, we're going to be talking about how to increase your dopamine baseline naturally. We're going to be reacting to some Jubilee fat shaming and asking the question, does counting your NoFap streak hurt you or help you? But before we get into all of that, Fresh and Fit asked their table of Miami girls the question of who should be the leader in a relationship, and the response shocked me. Check it out.
All right, let's check it out.
Gotta be strong and lead because Black women feel like we gotta be strong and lead because it ain't a lot of leaders. You know
Women gonna always lead.
But I would want a man to please lead me. So please lead me because I'm tired.
Who do you think is supposed to lead in a relationship, man or woman, for the most part?
A man, for sure. A man is stronger, emotionally and physically.
I always find myself leading, taking charge, and that's not attractive.
Okay.
That's not something that's cool,
I agree.
And yeah, most definitely, like I want somebody to lead me, somebody to guide me, put me on all this. But yes, I would appreciate if he were to, ask me from time. But yes, at the end of the day, he's the one that makes the final decision after going to me and asking me, hey, what do you think about this?
Huh. Okay. Well, that's great that they agree with that. And here's what's weird about that, I guess, is that women, a lot of times the way that they will try and get a man to lead is by doing the exact opposite. They will try and put a man down. They will try and be controlling just so that the man is forced then to stand up and take control. They almost want you to take control from them. It's, what they call like a shit test in a lot of ways. They want to see how strong you are. So that it's kind of surprising to see the Fresh and Fit girl. Well, maybe it's not so surprising to see the Fresh and Fit girls acting like that because they're not feminists necessarily. Would you say that, Pete? Like, what kind of girls do they tend to have on Fresh and Fit? I don't really watch the show.
I don't either, but I would imagine some of them, fall into that category of activists, this, that, the other, feminists. But I think you're right. The majority of them, they're just looking for that Instagram clout.
Okay. So here's the question then. Are they saying this kind of stuff because they know that's what the Fresh and Fit audience wants to hear? So that they can get more followers on their Instagrams? Because I'm pretty sure that's like what they do is they go on there for attention, right?
I would imagine that's why they go on. I'm not sure why they would go on for any other reason.
Yeah. Huh. But what's interesting to me about this is that, regardless of their motivations, it's like you have these girls with, I'm not going to make explicit assumptions about any of those girls, but I imagine if you go on their Instagrams, not necessarily recommending this, that they probably have many revealing pictures of themselves on there. And so you have a person of that moral framework who believes that displaying their body for the sake of generating sexual attention from masses of anonymous guys online, they think that's a good thing, a great thing. It's what they're focused on, okay? Let's say that's one morality set, okay? They believe that the man should lead. But then we also have people like Eliot Hulse, who we just had on for a great interview. Check that out if you haven't seen it yet. He also believes the same thing. It's interesting how that overlap sort of happens there. What do you think that's about, Pete?
That's the most surprising thing to me, because you would not expect Eliot Hulse and these girls to agree on anything, or at least I would.
Particularly like gender dynamics and stuff like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's like the last thing you think they would, well, maybe not the last thing you think they would agree on, but, it's very fascinating that, and that brings up a good point. Are they saying that just to please the Fresh and Fit guys? Because they know what the show's about. It's a red pill kind of show. So if they agree with the guests, it's keeping the feathers rubbed the right way.
I think it's just that both sides understand sexual polarity, and that there needs to be a more dominant and a more submissive, or I mean, probably a more comfortable language, particularly to women. It's a more of a leader, more of a supporter. Okay. And they want that because that's what they want to be. They want to be a princess. They want to be a queen. They want to be someone who is able to just focus on being their beautiful self and taking care of the things that they want to take care of, which is not being in charge, calling the shots, making the money, that sort of thing. And so they understand that, and they realize who they want to be, and then they were like, well, then I need a partner who's going to handle all this other stuff. Let that be the man. Let him do all the hard stuff. Let him make all the hard decisions. Let him do all the intense work to bring in the money, and we'll be great. And I'll be beautiful for him, and we'll be happy together, and it'll be a good relationship, right? And so I think it's that polarity. The people who don't agree with this are the people who really don't want any polarity. The people on the far left who want basically no differences between men and women. In fact, they want to kind of erase the traditional understanding of man and woman and have them be more just like interchangeable hats that you can put on just by defining like I am a woman, I am a man today, whatever. And that is what destroys polarity. And when you destroy polarity, there's going to be no attraction there. It's just going to be flat, right? It's just going to become like this thing about really what it becomes is like a game of how has my conditioning been warped by porn, and what do I have to do now to get my genitals to be stimulated? And then it devolves into this weird kind of like Tinder hunt and find, or Grindr hunt and find, where you're just looking for someone you can knock jollies with, I guess.
Hafiz from the Roommates, he was speaking to a group of young guys, and he said he had this analogy of, it's like you're driving a car and you're picking up a girl to go with you on your drive. But if you're driving in the car, she's in the car with you, and you're driving for 10 minutes, and she's like, "Where are we going?" You're like, I don't know, we're just kind of chilling, we're just driving around, man, just chill. And then 30 minutes goes by and it's the same thing, and an hour goes by, it's the same thing. And she sees you miss the exit that you were supposed to take. She grabs the wheel and starts driving the car from the passenger seat. You're not going to be too hot with that, but they're going to do that if they feel like you're not taking them in any particular direction, or if you're taking them in the wrong direction. I thought that was an interesting analogy to use,
Yeah, and that is a good analogy to use. And I think there's kind of two different cars that you got to drive almost. It's like, one is like, where are you taking yourself, right? Like, women want to see a guy with ambition, with direction, with focus. It's like, hey, he's going somewhere. And if he's going somewhere, like, a guy wouldn't get himself all focused to go somewhere unless it was somewhere worth going, right? So that's kind of the first thing. So they think, all right, he's got himself at least together to have a direction. A lot of guys say they don't even have that. And a lot of that, there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm not blaming guys entirely. I'm just saying this is the way it is. You gotta create your own direction. But then there's another piece of it, which is, where are you taking the relationship? Where are you taking this woman? Okay? And that's a part that you also have to define and clearly lay out. And that's maybe the thing that's not so that I would say Eliot Hulse has a much clearer picture on. He knows what he's trying to do with his wife, exactly what kind of family he's trying to make, what kind of stuff he's devoted to, right? And I'm not entirely sure that that some of these women know exactly what they want to be led to. It's like, yeah, I'm sure they would love a guy to take them to a life where they have lots of money and free time. And again, I'm making assumptions about these women, but like, do they want kids? Do they just kind of want to be a little trophy side piece that gets to take Instagram pictures of their butt all day? I don't know. And so this is the distinguishing point where it's like, we really got to figure out, like, okay, what kind of family are you trying to create? What kind of future for the relationship is there? Are you just, friends benefits, trying to hook up, or are you trying to create something with meaning, with value, with the potential to generate new life, to create a legacy that will outlive your own? That's what family is. Like, most guys, like 99.999% of guys they're not going to create anything that's going to like outlive themselves. They're not going to like be some kind of like world changing, you know, mogul who creates like changes the face of humanity. Okay. Average guy's not going to do that. His biggest legacy is going to be his family, right? Like that's what it's going to be. And so like, I think women, they feel this too. They want to be part of something bigger. Men and women both want to be part of something bigger. But like, if you're not steering it toward something bigger, then what are you steering it toward? Usually it's something mundane, shallow, and rather vapid. And a lot of women, like, they don't know anything. They don't know any better. Same with guys. They don't know any better. They don't know that there's something more meaningful and powerful out there. Or if they do, they've been so poisoned to it. Like modern culture has poisoned us to family and the pursuit of family in such a intense way. It's kind of disgusting. So it's like on the surface, they get repelled by it. And so it's like, it's not just even about driving toward that thing. It's about inspiring her of the vision, right? So it's like, if you're going back to that example you were talking about of like the guy driving and, you know, the woman's asking, where are we going? Where are we going? It's like, you gotta paint the picture. It's like, we're going on an adventure, babe. We're gonna go somewhere amazing. And you start getting them excited about it. They want to be able to look forward to it. And the only way that they're going to do it is if you are able to paint the picture of it, because society is not really doing that. Society is, you know, painting the picture of family life, of, you know, committed, you know, monogamous relationships, all that kind of stuff as like this horrible thing. Even in the manosphere, it's something it's a very common sort of thread. And I think a lot of that has to do with like men abandoning their generative capability, their capacity to paint a picture and then literally create the reality, right? Like they're not carving it out. They're not taking responsibility for actually creating that compelling vision that they can bring people on board with. So, and toward. And so I think that's just something that we got to do as men. It's not just about driving yourself or even driving the relationship. It's about getting people to buy into the vision, the people who are most integral to it. So specifically your partner. And if you can do that, well then, you know, you got a fighting chance. So
yeah, absolutely. Hey, you have an interesting idea for the comments section. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So if you guys get like any kind of nuggets of insight, what I want you to do is just like, you know, if something hits you throughout the episode, just go ahead and like note it down in the comments. Let the comment become kind of like the comment section be your notebook. I want like to be able to, like in all my videos moving forward, just put your insights in there like that hit you the most, because I want people to be able to go to my videos and have like a pre-written thing of like impactful notes, and that'll help us like understand like what concepts resonate the most. Let us put the best stuff together. And additionally, I'm going to have a pinned comment down there where you can let me know your favorite segment from the show, because we're constantly trying to get better material, stuff that resonates with you guys more, and yeah, so we can make the show better and better, and something that you really truly want to tune into. So keep that in mind, and we'll make our comment sections awesome. And then feel free also, obviously, comment whatever the hell you want.
All right, guys, next up, this YouTube channel is probably the most reacted to YouTube channel on YouTube. It's a channel called Jubilee, and they recently got a bunch of guys together of all different shapes and sizes, and they had their audience rank them based on physical attraction. Here are the results.
I've never heard of this channel. Shows how out of the loop I am.
If you're looking at just physicality, not even knowing our personalities or who we are, of course we're gonna have, you know, sexy six-pack.
Why do they have him eating a banana?
Maybe he likes bananas.
This is intentional. And I'm not sure what the intention is yet, but let's go.
Over here and, you know, me over here. Why not? I think Latinos are hella sexy, so I don't get why we're over here. Come on, guys, but I respect this. I like it. How do y'all feel?
I'm comfortable, but I don't know. At the end of the day, it's hard for me to really judge on it. I guess the audience has voted.
I think it makes sense for the way that, like, I think people generally view the world just based on, like, what you see in the media, social media.
Is every person here gay?
So can you pause it and on like one of the wide shots right there? Perfect. So just to describe what's going on for our audio listeners. So we have 5 dudes right here, and they're ranked by attractiveness. On the least, we have an overweight gentleman. Yep. Next to him is a slightly overweight gentleman. Next to him is a tall, skinny guy. Next to him is a skinny fit dude. And then next to him is a jacked dude. So exactly what you would anticipate. But the reaction to this ranking, I thought was kind of interesting.
Let me see.
Do I think that it makes sense for anyone as an individual? Not necessarily.
Yeah, I'm not shocked because I mean, when I was younger, growing up, that's exactly the body type that I wanted to look like. My whole life, I like compared myself to that, so I think it's expected. So I'm not like surprised, but I did have a little bit more hope.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, it's
I feel a little bad for him.
It hurts to see that. But like the thing is, like, what do you guys expect? Like, yes, like we are naturally wired to find fit and healthy things attractive. Okay, it's like no one's going into the flower shop and buying the flowers that are, you know, not looking healthy, right? This is not what you do. It's like when you have flowers and they get unhealthy, it's like, you know, you actually prune them. You prune the ones that don't look as good. So then there's more energy going to the whatever. So like the point though is that this is what we're wired to do. Why do they even need to do this?
Well, okay, so interestingly, there's this video, I didn't show it here in this clip, but they then have them rank each other. And so they have them kind of do their own ranking. And of course, you know, the fit guy who was up front, he goes to like the middle, and, you know, the overweight guy goes to like second to last, and they put the poor skinny Asian guy for some reason at the last. It's like, well, that's not very fair to him. It's just a horrible setup. But what I thought was hilarious about this guy is he's like, I had a little more hope. And it's like, why?
No. I mean, like, so as a man, you have to learn how to accept like the brutal reality of things. Okay. You got to do it. And there's clearly a physical ranking. All right. The stronger, healthier body is more attractive. Bottom line. If you were morbidly obese, it's less attractive. Okay. But what they could have done is they could have put their bank accounts on display. And they would have asked women, which bank account is more attractive? That would have been much more interesting. What do you think what they would say? Obviously, the bigger bank account's going to be the most attractive. The smallest bank account's going to be the least attractive. And like, it'd be ridiculous for the guy at the bottom with like, you know, who's, you know, barely, who's basically on, you know, government assistance. It's like, man, I thought women would be a little bit more attracted to that. It's like, no, of course they wouldn't be. You didn't really think that, did you? Come on. It's like at a certain level, like if you want to become a man, you have to become objective about things. And there are going to be some places in your life where you stack up great. And there are going to be some places in your life where you don't stack up really at all. You're going to be, you know, last place. And this is something that every single one of us has to do because there's so many different vectors of status. There's financial status, moral status, social status, like your conversational skill, like all of these sorts of things. Okay. They're important things to like understand how they work. And you got to be willing to eat that red pill on it, because once you do that, once you accept really where you really stand, some of it's gonna make you upset, and then you can use that dissatisfaction, being like, that status that doesn't really reflect who I am on the inside, that doesn't reflect my dignity, and then you can do something about it. At least with a lot of them. Some things you can't help. Like you can't be like, well, you know, I'm 5'2", and so I'm gonna get taller. No, you can't do that, but you can put that into something else. You can put it into, you know, your finances, your physique, your whatever, right? And so learning how to be brutally honest with yourself with where you're at is just a prerequisite if you want the motivation to become the man that you truly want to be. If you're living in this fantasy world where it's like, oh yeah, I'm totally not great here, but I was just gonna like hold the hope that like it's actually like fine. What you're doing is you're robbing yourself of your own fire to improve your situation.
That's true. That's very true. You know, Jubilee had another video I wanted to talk about because they recently sat down several teenage dudes to ask them if they watch porn. And so here's the response to that.
Let's see that. Oh, wow, they got them in masks.
They got them all, yeah, masked up.
We brought together 7 strangers, protected their identities, and asked them all 7 burning audience questions.
If the answer is yes, you will flip on your life.
What is this weird? These guys do weird ass shit.
Oh yeah.
What is this setup here? This looks like they're like about to like do some kind of like occult ritual.
It does. Yes.
Okay.
Do you watch porn?
Wait, I thought these were guys.
So four out of the 7 indicated that they did.
Accessible and it's there. People use it. I'm one of them. I think most guys can agree that they have, at least at some point, watched it. And, you know, I mean, it's, if you can enjoy it in a healthy way, if you can enjoy masturbating in a healthy way, I think then, like, by all means, go for it. But
from personal experience, it messed me up because after watching it so much, you know, I'm sure we've all been there where you're on page 5 and like nothing is right. Like you're looking for that right video, but your dopamine like receptors and everything is so messed up at this point.
Look at this guy, he knows what's up.
The same thing that would get you off wouldn't get you off anymore, right? I went so deep into it where I'm a straight man, I started watching trans porn because it was just erotic in a different way that I've never seen before. I needed more stimulation.
Because of pornography?
Yes, because of pornography. So I don't think it's just entertainment. It actually affects with your brain and the way you perceive love.
Do you think that a lot of teenagers or teen boys are really educated on the effects of pornography?
No.
No teen boy is educated on the effects of pornography. Well, here,
that
education
is, but it
time.
sounds like from personal experience. So,
well, here's what's up. I've been a porn addiction recovery coach now for almost 10 years. You know, working with guys professionally. I've worked with, you know, I've probably coached well over 100 guys individually, and I've had thousands of guys go through my programs, and then more people comment, email, all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that guy was talking about there, where it's like he got hooked on trans porn, even though he's a straight guy, that kind of shit happens, and it actually gets even more extreme. There's this thing called HOCD, called homosexual obsessive compulsive disorder. And I don't know if that's like an official terminology or if that's something that kind of came up within the porn communities. I think it's probably recognized. I don't know. But anyway, it's something that's a real phenomenon. You can look it up online. And what ends up happening is that guys, through escalation, and what escalation is, it's like, hey, you watch porn, and a lot of times, like, you'll just get desensitized to normal vanilla stuff if you just do it enough. It just won't give your brain anything more. And so you'll turn to something a little bit more extreme, something a little bit more different, you know, more out there. And what this does is it creates an emotional reaction in you. And so for a straight guy, if he starts watching gay porn, that, like, it'll create an emotion. There'll be something that comes up inside of him. And in some cases, it's not even just gay porn. It can be disturbing shit. It can be violent stuff. It can be really gross stuff. Like, there is, like, there are things on the internet you just do not want to see. And the reason they exist is because some people do want to see them, because they've fried their brains so much that they need to see extremely degenerate things in order to feel anything. But once they feel something, that gives them the juice. It gives them kind of like this adrenaline jolt, this thing that allows them to then actually then have a rather powerful orgasm. And that they end up starting to get hooked on that because they keep coming back trying to get that hit because they're not getting it anywhere else because their brain's so fried. And then they get hooked on it, and then as they practice doing that, their sexuality starts to wire itself to that extreme fetish material. And so going back to the HOCD thing is, you'll have straight guys who get hooked on gay porn, and they get caught in this like crazy cycle where they don't know if they're gay or they're straight, and they need to constantly, they obsessively like watch gay porn or straight porn, and they keep flipping back between them to see, oh, is this turning me on? Is it not? Is it turning me on? Is it not? It's like, am I gay? Am I straight? Am I gay? Am I straight? And they go crazy trying to do this kind of shit. And I've heard all kinds of things, even like stuff like where gay guys, they escalate to being hooked on straight porn, and they're like, this isn't right. This isn't natural for me. It's like, porn will absolutely screw up your brain, and like, you know, you really want to stay away from it, especially from the escalation stuff, unless you want to go through an absolute nightmare trying to get your sexuality back to normal. Because this stuff, like, you know, if you just saw some super disturbing shit and you just jerked off to it, how do you think that feels afterwards? It feels horrible. It feels horrible. It's like, what the hell am I? What did I just do? And then, you know, if you just repress that shame and you don't do anything with it, and, you know, you're probably just going to keep going back to it and spiraling deeper, and you don't want to go there. Okay, guys? And the good news is that most of this stuff, it just completely goes away once you quit porn. You know, it may not go away immediately. It may not even go away entirely within 90 days. But within 90 days of going, you know, a hard mode porn reboot where you're not engaging in any sexual activity, no porn, no jerking off for 90 days, those feelings will be significantly less. And then depending on how bad the wiring it is, it can take up to 6 months to a year to kind of really bring yourself back to normal. But basically it's like you gotta stay away from the stuff, so then your brain, it has a default setting that it will come back to, as long as you're not continuously programming it towards something you don't want.
All right, next up, speaking of counting streaks here, fellow protagonist Mark from the Self Mastery Club says, I'd be interested to hear Mark's stance on counting days during your NoFap streak. And he goes on to say that he's heard other people say otherwise, that you shouldn't count the days and that you should just accept it as a new part of your identity and self-image, that you don't do that anymore. So, Mark, what would you say to that?
No, you got to count the days. Stop being a pussy. Okay, like that's what it is. Like that's what people like. That's why people don't want to count days, is because like they don't want an objective measurement to hold themselves to. Because when you're not counting days, it's real easy to tell yourself, well, I'm doing better. Man, I'm still I don't even remember the last time I jerked off, which was yesterday. Oh, it's because I've changed my identity. It's like, okay, there's truth to the idea that yes, you have to internalize this new identity of like, I'm just someone who doesn't watch porn, but you need to fucking prove it. Okay. You need to actually be the guy. Okay. And the way that you're going to prove that to yourself is by having a number, having an objective value that you are looking to embody. And you can do that with the streak counting. Okay. Now, if counting your streak creates anxiety inside of you, that's understandable. Okay. Because a lot of guys, what they do is they associate their worth with their streak status. Basically, they associate they conflate their worth as a person with their moral status. It's like, I only have as much value as I am objectively morally good. And that's not true. Like the way I believe dignity works is it's an unconditional thing. You have an inherent worth. And if you look at yourself like that, well, then it doesn't matter if your streak goes up or goes down. You're still good. Okay. And connecting with your dignity is what's going to allow you to look at your streak. Now, people say, well, if I'm already good, well, then why would I even worry about my streak? Why would I even try and quit porn? Well, because if you're good, that's your nature. And if you do bad things, then it's going to hurt you. Okay. It's just like the nature of who you are. If you go against the nature of who you are, it creates pain. If the nature of your arm is to bend this way and you just keep bending it, eventually it's going to snap. Okay. And it's going to hurt because you went against its nature. Same sort of thing here. It's like if you have a nature of goodness and you're doing something that is objectively bad for you, and you believe is objectively bad for you, then it's going to cause you pain. And so it should be like, you should be doing it because you are good. It's like, I am above this sort of thing. My worth puts me in a position where behaving in this way is beneath my dignity. I love that idea of like, this is of something being beneath your dignity. It should generate a level of repulsion in you, and it should put a fire in you to correct this situation. So yes, get objective with yourself. Like, this is a big part of like being a man. That's what we were talking about earlier in the show. Is that you need to be willing to look at objective realities. You need to be able to look at objective status hierarchies and accept where you fall in them. And a guy who is unwilling to track his streak while he's quitting porn is a guy who's trying to hide from that objective reality. Okay. Now, with all that being said, the streak doesn't always tell the full picture. Okay. It doesn't tell like if you say you never go over 2 weeks clean, but you went from using porn twice a day to now using it twice a month, that's a massive improvement. Okay. That doesn't necessarily like, oh, my best streak is 14 days. That doesn't necessarily capture the amount of improvement that you've had. So look at all the numbers, look at the frequency as well. Look at the duration, look at how many times you screw up when you binge. And so you can use all these other metrics to help yourself understand that, hey, I am making progress. But the one that you really want is that one of like, how many days? Like, am I actually truly completely removing this thing from my life? And if you are, well, then that's when you're going to really feel good about yourself. When you really are able to objectively say like, oh, I haven't done this in this long. Like, I have not personally jerked off to porn in 9 years. Are you saying that doesn't matter? Like, if I just jerked off like, maybe 20 or 30 times in there, it would be the same thing just as long as I made the identity shift? No, it's not the same thing. So like, engage in the battle, right? Like, this goes with every area of life. It's like, if you're serious about improving your career, Okay, there are a bunch of ways you can improve your career, but if at the bottom line you're not getting paid anymore, are you really getting to where you want to go? Right? Like embrace objective values. Like they're painful, but it's that pain that gives you the fire. It gives you the clarity. It gives you the feedback you need to really make things move forward. Otherwise, you're kind of just living in this fantasy world where you're just trying to kid yourself that you're getting what you want when you really aren't.
Last but not least, here's Andrew Huberman on how to increase your dopamine naturally.
Let's say you want to increase dopamine for sake of increasing motivation. The first thing to do is to understand what the natural behavioral tools are for increasing dopamine and to do those as consistently as possible. Again, these are tools that you'll want to do nearly every day, if not every day. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record on this one, but here again, we come to sunlight and I should say not just the desire to, but really the need for viewing the maximum amount of sunlight that one can reasonably get, given schedules and locations in the world, time of year, etc., in the early part of the day. Now, there's another way to increase the effect of whatever dopamine happens to be circulating in your brain and body. And this again relates to increasing the number or the efficacy of the receptors for dopamine. Now, here we're not talking about the dopamine receptor 4, but a different category of dopamine receptors, the D2 and D3 receptors, which are expressed multiple places in your brain and body and bind dopamine, meaning dopamine parks in them like a parking spot and allows dopamine to generally increase the activity of the neurons and cells that express those dopamine receptors. How do you do that? Well, it turns out that regular ingestion of caffeine at safe and appropriate levels of about 100 to 250 milligrams is going to increase the number of D2 and D3 dopamine receptors. The other way to increase dopamine and to make sure that your baseline levels of dopamine are high enough is to make sure that you're eating sufficient numbers of tyrosine-rich foods. For most people, eating foods like Parmesan cheese, eating foods like certain meats and certain vegetables also can increase tyrosine levels, which will increase dopamine synthesis.
Okay, Huberman. You nerd. No, actually, I like Huberman a lot.
I do too, but I want to summarize that point for people who maybe didn't catch all that. Basically, what he's saying is go outside with a cup of coffee and Parmesan cheese. No cocaine was discussed, which I'm kind of surprised that would work, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is like one of those things where it's like you have a very scientifically minded guy who's very smart. He knows a lot about all this stuff, and there is, for sure, value in understanding like the unique biomechanics of these different pathways and shit like that that can absolutely help, you know, optimize things. Okay, but like optimizing something is not the same thing as like 80-20ing it. Okay, it's like he's talking about things that'll take you from maybe 80% up to 100%. How do you get to the 80%? Well, it's like, okay, stop blowing all your dopamine on dumb shit. Number one, that's going to give you, like, you could be like, you know, this guy stuck in a subterranean basement. And if you're not spending your dopamine on bullshit like porn and video games and social media and all that kind of crap, you're going to have plenty. Okay. And you're going to be able to channel it towards something. You're going to be able to get yourself on fire. Okay. And, you know, we have plenty of people in the world today who are absolute monsters when it comes to like business, career, just like snapping necks, cashing checks and that kind of shit. And they eat like garbage. Okay. It's just the reality. You know, not all of them, like they're, you know, it's definitely holding them back, their diet, but they're still kicking ass. Okay. It's like, there's so much more to them. Like we've gotten to this like state where we're just trying to like biohack everything. We're just trying to find like the tips and the tricks and that sort of thing because people don't want to talk about like the big, meaty, hard to follow principles. It's like, oh, well, you know, I don't need to change anything else in my life as long as I like make sure I just sun my nuts for like 5 minutes in the morning and then I'm going to be like totally good. No, dude, like I'm not saying that's, I don't know. I haven't tried that yet, so I can't speak on personal experience about the potency of nut sunning. But like there are bigger things that you got to focus on first. You know, don't get caught majoring in the minors.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. And I think this doesn't apply to 99% of people. I think it does apply to someone like Andrew Huberman. For him, going outside in the morning in the sun with a cup of coffee and some Parmesan cheese, that might be worth the time.
Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going
guy.
to pull a Dave Asprey. You know, he's the guy who made Bulletproof Coffee, who made it who brought the popularized idea of putting butter in coffee.
You don't like that.
I'm going to do it, but it's like we're going to sell your coffee cheese. Okay, come on, everybody. Cheese. We're just gonna put your Parmesan right in there.
That sounds terrible.
Parmesan coffee, baby. You know, it's the next big thing.
Oh man.
But that's another thing too about coffee is another thing I wonder about a lot, because I've gone through periods where I've cut it out completely. I've gone through periods where I would drink 2 to 3 cups a day. I did that for years, 2 to 3 cups a day, or 1 to 3 cups a day, and I found that taking it mostly out is by far the best. Like, I have the best, most sustained energy levels, like, for sure. And then what's cool then is if you're mostly not in using caffeine, you can dose it periodically when you feel like you need it. If you're about to do like a really deep focus session, like, I can focus like a monster when I'm like, if I go to the library, I can focus for 6 hours straight with just like, a cup of coffee or 2. But I don't do it every day, because the thing with caffeine is it's kind of like this thing that robs you, after a while. Eventually you get these, it stops being as effective. Like look in the book Caffeine Blues and that sort of thing. So a lot of this like science stuff, it's not really, it's always studies, right? It's always studies. You never know how the study is exactly done, like over how long of a period, all that kind of stuff, how many variables they really control for and that sort of thing. And so it's like, you got to really experiment with this stuff, because it's not as simple as just like looking up someone's like Twitter thread of biohacking tips for how to, increase your dopamine, and then boom, your problem solved. It's not. Like, usually there's always a much more holistic picture that is far more important. And I'm not trying to trounce Andrew Huberman here. He goes really deep on a lot of this stuff, and everybody's trying to create content these days, and got me thinking about it. Makes me feel better about my heavy use of Parmesan cheese personally. So it's all good stuff. Just I love Parmesan. As a kid growing up, I would call it tiny cheese. And so that is still what it's called in my house and my parents' house today. It's like, please pass the tiny cheese. So
I love it. Love it. Well, there's one simple reason why I don't like caffeine. I want to jump in here, because I was on a trip for 3 days, and I had a good buddy who drinks every day. He wakes up and he gets his pot of coffee, and I think a lot of people do this as their routine in the morning. And we were on a trip. It was 3 days long. Day 2, the guy's struggling hard because he's got his head hurting. It's like, why would you want to be dependent on something like that? So that's the problem with that stuff, is you become dependent on it if you're not careful. What I mean?
When I quit it, like I did not feel myself for like 2 weeks, for sure. Like I felt like really dragging. Like I felt like shit. And it's like, it's kind of like cocaine. It's a stimulant, just like it's like, of course it's going to boost your dopamine. Of course. That's what it does. But like, your body produces more than enough dopamine. The problem is most of us are so depleted and like blowing our dopamine on so much bullshit that like when we feel like we need this extra kick, when you really don't. Like we're perfectly evolved and adapted to like live our entire day on purpose. You just, that's what you got to do, is like, you just got to make sure you're not wasting your shit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, guys, go ahead and leave us a comment down below of your favorite story from today, as well as, some little tidbits, some golden nuggets that you got out of the podcast. Make kind of an open notebook for everybody so we can learn from each other as well. And if you haven't seen last week's episode, we talked about how to get rid of depression once and for all, how to avoid one of the biggest rationalizations in the way of quitting porn, and how corporate America has become adult daycare. But with that, thank you for watching Man vs. World.
See you, everybody. Thanks so much. And if you want more of my best material, particularly on how to retrain your brain, check out the link in the description for my manhood mastery training. It's a full hour, totally free. Some of my best stuff in there. I think you'll love it. All right. See you in the next one, guys. Ooh-yah!